Today we are going to discuss prejudice, its theories and how prejudice could be reduced. As we have discussed prejudice before, that what is that, and prejudice is actually the cognitive component of the stereotypes or the attitude we used to hold towards other people. Stereotypes used to be the affective and the feeling component of that belief which we hold, and the prejudice is going to be the cognitive component, and then comes the discrimination, which is actually the behavioral component in which we used to apply those prejudice and stereotypes in the real life. When we are talking about the theoretical perspectives of the prejudice, then the first thing which we need to discuss is that how it used to start in the societies and in different cultures. The origin of prejudice usually is based on the two things and the two discriminations which are being done. The first thing the person used to perceive in their environment or in their society or in their culture is that they used to perceive threat, and that threat is just being perceived by them. That threat might not be an actual threat, but that is what that particular group used to think or used to perceive in their environment. That threat could be in the form of some source for some resources, some facilities, some opportunities, some options available in their society, culture, country, and they could be material or they could be symbolic as well. For example, some sort of recognition, that could be that they could be abstract in that way as well. So whenever a person or a group is going to feel that they are having some sort of threat to their self-esteem or to their group interest, they are going to start having the feelings, or they are going to start experiencing prejudice. When we talk about different perspective and different models, then it is very much necessary that we discuss that these intergroup biases used to come from three important perspectives. The first is economic perspective, motivational perspective, and the last is cognitive perspective. As the name already says something about each of these perspectives, when we are going to discuss economic perspective, there will be theories which used to come in when there is a competition, when there is economy discussed, whenever there is some sort of commodities or the materialistic things are going to come around, then we are going to discuss the economic perspective, in which the competition is at its peak and people are perceiving some sort of threat in that particular way. Then when we discuss the motivational perspective, in the motivational perspective, the identification with the in-group frustration or the social anxiety or the social identity is going to be the main focus or the main motivation behind person experiencing or the group experiencing that particular prejudice or the stereotype. So in the motivational perspective, it is that the people or the group are going to be motivated towards something. Maybe their self-esteem is threatened, so they want to regain that self-esteem. We are going to discuss all these three perspectives in detail with certain different theories which are proposed under these headings of these perspectives. Then lastly is the cognitive perspective. As its name says, it is the cognitive or the thinking pattern which is going to cause prejudice or the stereotypes in the person, and that thinking pattern is going to be the belief that people hold, and that might be helping them in some way to understand their situation or their environment. When we discuss economic perspective, the first thing we can discuss over here is the lack of resources. Maybe and mostly it is true in certain situations that whenever the competition for resources is there, the prejudice is used to be high. Why that is high? Because the one group thinks that the other group is going to gain all the opportunities available, and they are not going to be left with any of other left opportunities, and they are not going to have that much privilege or that much opportunities as much the other people or other group are going to have. In this we can talk about jobs, homes, economy, and all of those things which used to come under this heading, in which we can discuss the materialistic things as well. When we talk about zero-sum outcome says that if one group is going to have that particular opportunity, then the other group is going to lack in that. For example, sometimes we might have heard in our own society and culture that there is favoritism for the jobs, that usually the upper class or the people with references used to get more jobs. So what is this? That this is some sort of in-group and out-group. Those people who are good in socio-economic status, or those who have good links in with the upper management, or those who know very well the politicians of their country, so they are going to have good approach. And in Pakistan it is usually being believed, and then it forms an in-group and the out-group, the people with full of resources and people without resources. So the zero-sum outcome says that they are going to be deprived of the job opportunity which they deserve, because there are people which are the outgroups and those who have more links in the upper management and the government as well. So this is what the competition for the resources is. And the conflict, in this we can cover the example of the conflict which is going on for a lot more years than we can imagine, between Israel and Palestine. That is that they want to have control on Jerusalem, which is the capital of Israel. So over that there has been a fight which is going on, there is a war which is being going on, and that is because of the competition for the resources. When we talk about the competition, then competition is always being escalated, and always that competition which is going to be escalated in between the two groups, that is going to escalate the prejudice, and that is the cause of prejudice as well for that particular in-group and out-group. This is being defined and explained by the theory realistic group conflict theory, which was proposed by Campbell in 1972. This theory actually suggests that whenever there is a competition, the members of the groups are going to have an increasingly negative evaluation of other people in the out group, and they may label them as enemies. As we have discussed the example of Israel and Palestine as well, you can take any sort of example wherever there is going to be a competition. For example, football match, even PSL, you can take the example of PSL, because all those team players used to be in one team as a international Pakistan cricket team. So whenever they are having a match with on an international level or ICC level, or when they are playing in the World Cup, so that all those team players are in just one group and they are being supported by each and every Pakistani. And when those team members are divided in certain different teams on the basis of their city or their regions, then these teams used to take each group of people, or each city used to take another city's team or another region's team as their out group. And whenever there is a competition, then it is going to escalate the prejudice between Islamabad and Lahore. It is going to be the prejudice which is going to be discussed in those days, and which is going to be escalated in those days when these matches are going to come around. Even in Karachi, Lahore, and Lahore, Karachi, and Karachi, Islamabad as well. So all of these things used to be escalated, and the prejudice is being inculcated whenever there is a competition among the two, even though you consider them the same when they are playing the international cricket as one team. So this is what realistic group conflict theory says, that whenever we make our own group, then we try to have our group to be morally superior, and we create some sort of firm boundaries that other things cannot come in, and we just start with at a milder level, and then we can reach the extreme of that feeling being against that person, to the extent that we start thinking that they are inhuman as well, as we have discussed, in the form of war, or in the territory, in the form of territory, as we have discussed according to Israel and Palestine. Next, when we talk about the same economic perspective, there is an important study and a research which which has been done and conducted under this category by Sheriff and his colleagues, and they confirmed that the competition can be increased and the conflict can be increased. And they have done an experiment and they called it Robbers Cave experiment, because in that they conducted a summer camp with the middle class boys, and they took them over there and they randomly assigned them into two different groups. Initially each group member was free to do things, and they were enjoying their hiking, swimming and other sports, and there was nothing as we have discussed before, there was no competition and there was no prejudice against each other, because they were just enjoying those activities, and they were joined together in some other forms of activities as well. They formulated some sort of attachments, and they started developing intimacy towards each other, and they were in a very good terms with each other. They developed their own names for their own groups, and they developed the symbols for themselves as well. In the second phase of that study, the groups were given a competition, and in that 5 days competition, they were asked that at the end of that competition they are going to have some sort of reward, and that reward will be a trophy and some other desirable prizes which were good and desirable for that particular age. So all the boys and all the group members wanted those prizes, and they wanted to win the competition. So this actually led them towards the conflict, and that conflict increased each time they started a competition, and they competed with each other in every different group and in every different level of their interaction and every different game. So whenever they were in the competition, that escalated over the period of 5 days, and even it has risen to the level that they started humiliating each other. They started stealing, and it ended with when rattlers broke into Eagle's cabin, and they just put things around over them. Then in the final phase of the competition, the researchers had in mind that they wanted to recover that conflict which has been created in that, and they wanted to reduce the negative reactions towards other group. Then they tried to eliminate that, and researchers tried a few things in an attempt to reverse the prejudice and reduce conflict between the two groups. The attempt one was that first they attempted that there was mere exposure, that they exposed each of the two groups with one another in a neutral setting in which there was no competition, but that mere exposure did not help to improve any of their relationships between them, and they even insulted each other in that conversations or in that exposure as well. And then secondly, what researchers done was that they superordinate goals, they designed them, and in those goals what was actually done was that both the groups were given the task in which both of them were supposed to play their role, and they were playing that role which is going to help both the groups to meet a single target. So they joined their goals, and there was one goal which both of them had to participate in to get it much better and to improve their outcomes of meeting that goal. So in that there were certain different tasks which were given to them. So for example, they had funds to rent a movie together, they have jointly repaired a broken down truck as well. So there were different tasks which they were asked to do that to reverse their prejudice and reduce that conflict. So in that study they have seen that superordinate goals helped them to eliminate that prejudice which was formulated before. Now we can move towards another perspective which was proposed by Aronson, and he did an experiment, and we call it jigsaw classroom, because in that experiment he proposed that whenever two different groups, even if there are two different groups, or even if people are going to be studying in that particular group, if they are given the task which is the combined effort. For example, as you can already imagine that if a topic is given to all the class, and all the class is supposed to read that particular research topic or research article, and then they have to discuss it with the class, and then the class is going to learn that part by that one particular student only, then the other part is going to be discussed by another class fellow or classmate, then that thing is going to make it a common goal of learning. So we can say that in that condition there will be no in-group and out-group competition, and every student is going to think that other person is going to help them, and there is not going to be any sort of discrimination, and it is going to boost the intergroup friendships as well. Then when we talk about the motivational perspective, in that motivational perspective, as we can understand that there must be some motivation. So that motivation under this is the threat to one group's self-esteem. Whenever any group is going to think, or any individual is going to think that their self-esteem is under threat, under some sort of threat or jeopardy because of environmental consequences or environmental situations, then they are going to support their own group or their own selves as well, and they are going to make every effort to restore their own self-esteem and their own self-concept if they are going to feel or perceive their own self as threatened. Perceiving a threat to our group can lead us to identify more with our in-group, as we can see over here, that whenever Pakistan is in danger, every Pakistani is going to unite against those comments or those criticism which are going to be made by any enemy country or any person who is against Pakistan or Pakistani nation. So under that category they are going to be united, even though if they are not very happy about other policies, but under that situation they are going to be as a one unit. There was an experiment again which was done to process that theory or process that perspective, that either it is true or not. When that study was conducted, they showed 2 6-minute videos which was based on this particular movie Rocky IV, in which an American was playing the role of a boxer which was American, and the other opponent was Russian. So they were assessed in the first part, every person was assessed that how much value they placed on their identity as being an American. So after assessing that, they were shown one clip, and that one clip was that American boxer won that match against the Russian opponent. So in that clip, and the other clip was that in which the Rocky, the American boxer, loses the fight against the Russian opponent. So both of these clips were played, and the first one was not threatening, but the second clip was threatening, in which American loses the fight against a Russian. So in this version, people who had high identity and who put high value on their identity as American, and so it lowered their feeling of their self-esteem based on the group membership when they watched that threatening video in which an American is losing from a Russian. So that was threatening, and that actually make them perceive as a threat to their self-esteem or the self-concept. So those who were identifying them very strongly as an American, there was an increased retaliation towards that situation, and they were prejudiced more after watching that clip about Russians as well, and they negatively evaluated Russians, and they even passed the comment that they don't want Russians to be in the United States in the future as well. So when they negatively evaluated Russians, there was an important point that their self-esteem actually increased, and they thought that they perceived their self-esteem to be restored when they negatively evaluated Russians. So when we are talking about the motivational perspective, and under that when we are talking specifically about the self-esteem, then it is also a perspective and it is also an idea that when a person is going to putting someone else down and putting down someone else's self-esteem or someone else's worth, then they think that they are going to be more worthy and they are going to have resolved that prejudice, and they think that their self-esteem is being restored. As you can see it in the model over here, the threat to self-esteem is going to increase the prejudice, and after that is being done, then they are going to insult or humiliate the other outgroup, and that is going to maintain their own self-esteem, and that is going to be restored. Moving forward, when we talk about the role of social categorization, the us versus them effect is that we used to make different groups. One is in group and one is out group, and whenever we are considering our in group, then we talk about us, and when we are talking about the out group, we talk about them. So that is that us category is more favorable in terms, and that them category is always perceived negatively. Even if you say that we are not prejudiced and we don't think about the other groups as our opponents or something, so that could be because you might be not aware of, but there must be, or there will be a difference between the liking of your in-group members and your out-group members. When it was researched on the students about how prejudice is being justified, in what conditions it is going to be justified, and what conditions it is not going to be justified. We can say legitimized or illegitimate. So when we are talking about that, then college students' responses, there were 105 different social groups they actually identified, and the top 10 are given over here. As you can see that they thought that prejudice is justified against abusers, rapists, molesters, terrorists, wife beaters, pregnant women who drink alcohol, and all those categories. These are the top 10, and the prejudice they think is not going to be justified, that is going to be against blind people, family men, people who are mentally impaired, and all those things, as you can see over here. So this was the research which actually given us the idea that when people used to think that prejudice is justified, and when prejudice is not justified. In motivational perspective, another theory which we discuss over here is the social identity theory. The social identity theory actually talk about that how we used to feel positive when we belong to one particular group, and when we are going to belong to one particular group, that is going to boost our self-esteem in some way or the other. For example, you're a student of particular university, your self-esteem is boosted, and you just feel the boost when you are going to say that. And when you were in the college, that college used to boost your self-esteem as well, because you were the part of that college. So these are the different things we used to associate our social identity, and that gave a boost to our self-esteem as well. As we can see that people who are identified with their groups are more likely to express favoritism towards that group. For example, if you see or if you now meet anyone else, any stranger, and as soon as they are going to claim that they have studied from the same school or from the same college which you have done, from which you have studied in your earlier years, then it is going to be an instant in-group feeling, and you are going to have some sort of favoritism towards that particular group. So that particular group is going to be in group because there is some sort of similarity you feel with them as well. So towards favoritism is going to be played their role on towards the in-group, and the bias is going to be played against the out-group members as well. As you might recall, the minimal group paradigm, which used to say that we used to make in group with the minimal criteria. So that is going to make us and them category in them category as well, and that is going to come under social identity theory as well. Now let's talk about the cognitive perspective. As its name is, it's all cognitive, it's all thinking, and it's all the beliefs which we have already stored. So this could be compiled, and you can precisely understand it by this thing, that whenever people used to think that whenever the environment is too big, too complex, and too much out of the grasp, then the easiest way to do is to just reconstruct that environment into a simpler terms. Or for example, whenever you are going to study something, you rewrite it or you rephrase that information into your own words, in which it is going to be more comprehensible for you. You are going to make that information easy for you to understand, or you are going to get the gist out of that particular information. So what you are doing, that you are reconstructing that particular information in a simpler information. So in cognitive perspective, people are usually reconstructing their environment or reconstructing their environmental factors or cultural factors into a model which is going to be simple or easy for them to understand. Why people use cognitive perspective? Because it is shortcut, because there are a lot of schemas. The first thing is people used to form schemas, and schemas are those hidden or innate beliefs which used to be there, which cannot be moved easily, and those schemas provide the person with the shortcut heuristics, and those shortcuts play a very crucial role in people's life when they are trying to understand the environment. So stereotypes actually plays the role of a schema, and that schema actually plays the role of a shortcut. For example, if you are going to meet someone with another ethnicity, and you hold some sort of particular belief about that ethnicity, then you are not going to be interested in the discussion about knowing that person particularly, because you already have the assumption and you already assume that this particular ethnicity is going to talk to me like that, or that particular ethnicity is going to behave to me like that. So you are not going to put your efforts to understand that person as an individual, and you are going to use that as a shortcut or as a reference to understand that person. When we are talking about these stereotypes under cognitive perspective, then we can say that if they are going to be applied too much, then it is going to have a very damaging effect on our own personality and on our communication, conversation, and the social life as well. Because whenever we are going to rely on the schemas, then we are going to rely on the automatic judgments which are dictating us. Maybe they come from our parents or from our ancestors, or maybe from our earlier learnings which were not that much transparent and which were already biased. So that could be a big problem if we are going to apply all our heuristic and schemas on every new situation we are going to encounter. What we are discussing is, we can term it as outgroup homogeneity effect. In that we can discuss that, as I given you the example already, that if you meet any person with another ethnicity, you are not going to put efforts to understand that particular person or that particular individual under his own entirety, but you are going to label him with that particular ethnicity, and you are going to say that all people belong to that particular ethnicity are going to behave the same, are going to act the same, and they are going to be the same people as well. So that is the homogeneity effect, that we think that everyone in the out group is going to be same, and people in the in group could be different, and they could have a contrasting interest and all those things. Princeton and Rutgers study was done, in that they actually asked the students about there were two different groups and from two different universities, and they were asked about the music taste. That when they were asked, then they said that when they were asked, they said that the people who were in the in group, they identified them having the different tastes, and they identified the other university students as having the same taste. For example, they just said that they used to like the classic. All of them are going to be the fan of the classic music as well, and they found the variations in their own in group. So this is what that we just understand, that in the out group everyone is going to be same, and in the in-group the variations and the differences could lie. Next, when we talk about the stereotypes, that how damaging and how harmful they could be, the first thing is illusory correlation. We used to make false or faulty correlations between the situations and between the reactions and the consequences of those situations. As you can see in the picture over here, the person has illusorily correlated the particular area in the city with the bullying incident. So he don't like that area because there is a bully who used to live over there. So this is what is the illusory correlation, when you are going to link something without any particular evidence or without having much evidence about that. So you are going, because we are going to have lack of experience with the outgroup, so we are going to put that one experience and we are going to generalize it over the other consequences and over the other outcomes as well. So the negative behaviors are going to be easily generalized and they are going to be easily correlated with the outgroups, and the positive things are going to be linked with the in-group. So the negative behaviors from the minority members are likely to be seen much more correlated than they really are, because we don't have much experience with the outgroup. So even if there is one event which has been done, so we are going to generalize or link that with the outgroup as its general criteria of judgment. Lastly, now let's discuss the management for prejudice, that what can be done to avoid prejudice or to improve prejudice. Then there are certain strategies which you can think on about, and we can provide and we can apply these strategies as well, which are based on all the perspective which we have just discussed. The first thing is, whenever we are going to have a non-competitive contact, or we are going to inculcate some sort of non-competition environment, then the equality is going to arise, and the people in the in-group and the out-group are not going to feel threatened about any of the resources, and they are not going to feel threatened or in the form of competition. Then it is going to be resolved. The second is that superordinate goals which are going to help or inculcate the feelings of cooperation between the people, and it is going to help people to cooperate and join hands with other people around to meet one particular goal with the help of other members in the group. Lastly, Harrison's cooperating with other members of the group, which we have already discussed in that example, that Ranson in the jigsaw classroom, what he did was that if they were learning one particular topic, then each student was discussing one subheading of that particular topic. So every student or every classmate had some sort of significance, so everyone was playing its part to teach that particular topic to another classmate. So they worked collectively and they were cooperating with each other. One's learning was dependent on the other, so that actually eliminated the prejudice altogether. So that was all about the prejudice, about the theories of prejudice and the management of prejudice. I hope that helped you, and if you have any questions you can ask me. Thank you.